Hi there. Welcome back to Kari's Confessions, a nonprofit exec tells all. I'm Kari Anderson, principal with Insight Consulting. Thank you so much for joining me today. We're going to be talking about the year-end appeal and the preparation that you can do right now to ensure success as you near the end of this fiscal and calendar year. So, for those of you that are brand new to this podcast, a little about me. I am a recovering nonprofit executive director. I had the good fortune of serving in this field for about 25 years in Washington State and Colorado, serving 7 different nonprofit organizations. And now I work on the back end of supporting nonprofits all over the United States, making sure that you've got the structure and systems, policy and procedures, and everyone's in the right lanes, right, in order for you to do your best work. So today, as we get into prep for your year-end appeal, I would say there's 3 main points that I'll be talking through with you today. The first, and I know this isn't a surprise to you, there is money to be made in the next 3 to 4 months, specifically in November and December. We're going to talk about that together. The second is the idea that this is a step-by-step process, and we actually work it backwards. So we start with when you need to have all the money in the bank, and we work out backwards to ensure that you have plenty of time to ensure success. And the third piece is talking about tools that specifically you will need to guarantee the success of this year's campaign. So, first, why does this matter? I've talked to a few execs lately that are saying, yeah, we're not going to do the year-end appeal. We're going to focus on Giving Tuesday, or we just had a gala in October. And frankly, we're just kind of tired and don't want to worry about setting ourselves up with regard to year-end giving. Well, here are some numerical figures as to why this is important. And it continues to be important for the sector. 42% of nonprofits make 60% of their revenue between November and December. And of that, 31% of annual giving actually occurs in December. The last week in December in particular, 47% of online giving happens during that week, which is 12 times the amount of money that actually comes in on Giving Tuesday, the Tuesday after Thanksgiving. So this is a big deal, right? Especially for folks in the United States, we are programmed to be giving charitably, especially between Thanksgiving and the December holidays. So we'd be fools not to take advantage of this really, really important giving time, and really to be setting ourselves up for success for your next fiscal year. Before we dig in, though, got a question. What have you been doing to take care of your donors that gave last year? I'm hoping you've got a list in your head of things that you have done, not only to report impact, but to be able to share with them what their gifts have allowed you to do to move mission forward, that you've had multiple connection points with them. And if you're starting to feel a little guilty and thinking, I really haven't done much, you've got a way to rectify that, right, with this year's campaign. So first things first, in order for us to plan a successful campaign for this year, we really need to do some reflection about last year's campaign. And perhaps you did that in January, but it's a good time to dust off those notes and think through some important pieces. First of all, did you receive feedback from those that participated in the appeal? Did they like the format? Was it electronic or was it print? Was it infographic or picture heavy? Was it more than one page? Like, what sort of feedback did you get from those that actually participated in the giving campaign? Did you actually receive feedback from board members or staff that weren't necessarily a part of the campaign process? Any feedback is critically important for you in terms of planning for this next year. Some you might take and some you might not, but better to have that information so you can make some informed decisions about what this year's appeal is going to look like. I would challenge you to make a really objective pro and con list. What worked well and why? And what didn't work well and why, so that you can keep the items that really are reflective of best practice work for your organization and then discard those pieces that are not. A couple other pieces that I would just share. So one of the reasons that I hear often from development directors and executive directors is that there's so much work that goes on in fourth quarter every year for nonprofits, and that the appeal process can just feel overwhelming. This isn't about being perfect in a campaign. It's about getting this done and being good and being consistent. It's about managing expectations. And certainly part of that is going to be about what we're setting for goals. And I'll talk about that in a second. but also making sure that things are realistic, whether it's the amount of money that you're going to raise or the timeline in order to be able to get this campaign done. So, gathering data from last year's campaign, super, super important when we're setting goals. And goals aren't just about the money to be raised during campaign. It has to do with your demographics and who all this campaign is targeting. So the better, the better data we have, the better setup we can be for success for this year. I would encourage you to be able to start tracking data if you haven't already, whom all you're sending this to, and specifically if you've got sub demographics on them. Are these individuals that are brand new donors for you? Have they been giving to you for a while? Are they giving online, or are they giving via mail? What's their average size gift? The more data that you have in order to be able to set goals, the easier that this campaign will be for you. I think back to an unnamed nonprofit that I worked for in the Denver area about 20 years ago. And when I was a brand new executive director there, we were setting budget for the following year and specifically for this particular campaign. And my board had suggested that I undertake a 33% increase in the year end appeal. And I said to them, somewhat gritting my teeth, well, that's pretty rich. Where did we get that number? And the board member in question said, well, I sit on the board for the Boys and Girls Club, and that's the percentage increase that they're shooting for this year. I took a deep breath and I said, well, with all the respect in the world, I said, we're not the Boys and Girls Club. Could we perhaps set our goals used on data in our database? And they said, well, sure, let's pull the data and see what it said. Now, we hadn't been doing our best work yet with a year-end campaign. At that organization, we certainly hadn't been very data driven. So the data showed for me that they had about a 6% increase year after year in year-end giving. And I said, that campaign hasn't ever really been worked. So if we actually commit to work the campaign this year, meaning early campaign sending and follow up and the correct stewardship of donors, maybe we set a goal of 12% increase. Well, we actually ended up having about a 22% increase that year because we worked on it, right? But I share that example because using data to inform expectations is really, really important. And it also ensures you can be successful with this campaign. A couple other pieces that I would want you to consider now, thinking about everything else that is going on in your world with fourth quarter and for many of you, the end of the fiscal year. It's important for us to work backwards for campaign. And so when I'm thinking about working backwards, it's starting with, starting December 31st, right? And really working backwards. And a key benchmark in there is going to be, when is this appeal going to drop in the mail, right? Or drop via email? But I would absolutely have you start with working it backwards from the end of the year. And my encouragement for everyone is this thing should be in mailboxes or in inboxes before Thanksgiving. And ideally, it should be about the first week in November because everyone else waits, right? Or procrastinates, or something goes wrong with the printer, or there's something going on with graphic design. And best laid intentions are before Thanksgiving, but you don't get it out until after. And then everyone else's appeal has gone before yours. So the earlier we can get this, the better, because then you're top of mind. But it also allows you to do appropriate follow up and chases for this particular year end appeal into December rather than just being on our heels with this. I want you also, as you're thinking about timeline, I want you to start thinking about your audience and certainly segmentation of donors and or customizing messages where it's appropriate. So some of you are brand new, right? Or it's a brand new nonprofit and you don't have enough data yet on your donors to segment. And segmenting just means, hey, we have target audiences. Might be donors under 40, or it might be donors over 60, or donors that have given a certain amount of money over X amount of years. You may not have that data yet, or you may, right? And so based again on data that ideally is coming out of your donor database or your CRM, then you might have a different flavor of message that may go to certain bespoke audiences. Again, it's going to be based on what type of data you have on your donors and how much time you have to be able to craft those messages. In my estimation, you really have three different ways to deliver the year-end appeal. Well, three and a half, right? So direct mail, and it still works, folks, right? Don't discount it. Email, you've got social media, and you also have your website, right? So I think that there's a way via social media that you would direct folks back to your website. But there's really the big three, right? So social media, direct mail, and email are vehicles that you can use to get the year-end appeal out there. And I had said direct mail is not dead. It is not. I think about, oh geez, when we first started using email at work in the mid 90s, and how that just did not work for us, right? We still used direct mail, and then the switch to, oh, let's use email versus direct mail. My email box is so full every day, with things, right, from people, that I oftentimes don't look at them, but I sure look at my mail every day. I recognize that I'm one generation, and not all generations function that way. But you've got six generations right now that are in and around the workforce and are giving philanthropically. So you've got to be able to utilize all three. And that takes time, right? In order to do that, I would encourage you to spend time on your message. When I'm thinking about the most powerful appeals that I've seen, it's an opportunity to share stories that speak to the impact of your work, right? And there's so much that we can share. There's this balance, right? The art and science of the year-end appeal. It cannot be so long that people fall asleep, right? But it also cannot be so short that you're not really able to thoughtfully tell the story and demonstrate impact. And there's an adage that we had when I was in journalism school, right? Lots of white space, right? When we're thinking about crafting stories and making sure it's easy on the eyes. That it's certainly a mix of words, right? Because words matter, but also infographics are stories. And so this is why the timeline is so important, to give you time to first get your story down into words, and then you're able to figure out, hey, can we tell this story with a picture? Can we tell the story with an infographic? What's going to be the best way for us to be able to articulate impact, to our different audiences? I would also make sure, and again, checking this early and often before you hit send on that appeal, how easy is it for donors to give to you? This might be a good time for us to look at your website, right? Is your website current, up to date, engaging? Is your donor form user friendly? Oftentimes, we've been so busy executing a program and events over the summer that we've forgotten to look back at the website, and we think, oh, crumb, we've got some board numbers that are out of date. We have a couple of staff photos that are missing. We haven't updated impact for a couple of months. And so this is a great opportunity for you to look at this like you would be if you were a donor for your organization, to say how easy it is to navigate, and that donor button better be on the first page. And are all of the methods of giving available on your site? Certainly, there should be the ability to give via credit card. But if individuals are interested in giving not via credit card, right? Check for sure. Yes, that's a thing. I still have a checkbook. Others do too. But sometimes larger donations happen at the end of the year with gifts of appreciated stock. Are there instructions on your website as to how to donate stock to your organization? If you don't have that brokerage account yet, this would be the time to go and do it, right? So take a peek at that to make it easy for your donors. If you are sending direct mail, making sure that there's a remittance envelope with your direct mail campaign for the year-end appeal, and making sure that all staff know that this appeal is happening, so that if someone actually answers the phone, please tell me that you answer the phone when people are calling, that they understand that the appeal is going on and how donors can actually make a contribution over the phone. That still happens, right? I know that it is so tempting, especially if you're working remotely, not to answer the phone. We've got to answer the phone. I mean, that's just good business anyway, but especially during the last 2 months of the year when you've got a campaign going on, we shouldn't be letting phone calls go to voicemail. So, a couple of final thoughts as you're thinking about the particular steps that you should be taking this year to ensure your year-end campaign is successful. Making sure that the year-end campaign includes thanking and continued communication. So let's talk about thanking first. What I encourage many of my clients to do, and I so wish someone would have shared this with me, as I was kind of finishing my career as an executive director, scheduling specific messages on December 29th, December 30th, and December 31st. One of those days is social media, one of those days is email, and then the next day might be something on your website. It literally is a thanking message, thanking anyone and everyone who has been involved with your organization for their gifts of time, talent, and treasure. The reason that these thanking messages are so important is that research says that many families are sitting down at the end of the calendar year during the holiday season. You might be with your folks or other family members, and if they're making philanthropic decisions as a group, a little touch point like a thank you is something that triggers a reminder to say, oh my heavens, we haven't yet made our gift to XYZ nonprofit. We should do that this year. So just scheduling those pieces, even if you're going to be out of the office, you can schedule those and have those roll for sure. And as a part, right, of the year-end appeal, so some of the fun of this is, oh my heavens, there's donations coming in. And a lot of those donations will come in prior to December 31st. Some will certainly hit you in mail that happens right after the first of the year. One of the best possible things you can do right now is to tee up brand new thank you letters, right? Get those texts, get the text written, get everything ready to go in draft form that's attached to your CRM so that as those gifts come in, you've got freshened thanking mechanisms for those donors, and that you also have thought about a thanking plan, a stewardship plan, not only for this campaign, but for campaigns following up into the new year. I would also say for extra credit, right? If you haven't done this already, thinking about how you are going to evaluate and measure the success of your campaign. We do such a great job in terms of executing in this sector, right? We deliver on program, we deliver on campaign, we deliver on a myriad of things, but we need to actually pause to measure how well we're doing so you can make changes for next year's campaign. So, as you're thinking about what's next for you, if you'd like additional support with this, please visit my website, and that's insightconsultinggroup.com. That's INCITE consultinggroup.com. I've got an email there. You're welcome to shoot me a message, and I've got some specific templates having to do with timelines for campaign, also some specific language that you may want to consider during your thanking on December 29th, 30th, and 31st. And I would also welcome you to continue to follow me on your favorite podcast channels. Thanks again for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Take care.